Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Nahmadu wa nusalli ala Rasulil Kareem. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah, we praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ask him to send peace and blessing his beloved and our beloved Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. We're continuing the section on Salatul Jama'ah. Salatul Jama'ah, the hadith related to Salatul Jama'ah. The first chapter is that it being prohibited to lift your head up before the nahyu an yarfa ra'sahu qabla al-imam aw yakhfid, that a person lifts their head up or lowers their head before the imam, meaning that if the imam is lifting the head up, like coming up from ruku or sajda, to lift your head before that, or if they're going down to the action, that you beat them to the action. Imam Malik narrated from Muhammad ibn Amr bin Alqamah, who narrated from Malik bin Abdullah As-Sa'di, who narrated from Abu Hurairah radiyallahu anhu, that he said that the one who lifts his head up or lowers it before the imam, it is as though that his forelock, his nasiyah, biyadi shaitan, is in the hands of shaitan. And Imam Malik rahimahullah then said, as for the one who lifts his head up before the imam or in ruku, and before the imam in ruku and in sajda, ruku and sujood, before the ruku and sajda, it is sunnah for him that he returns back to the state of ruku and sajda, and he doesn't wait for the imam. Meaning, if let's say you lifted up your head before the sajda, right? Now you're waiting for the imam to catch up to you. Instead, you should go and meet where the imam is, back to where, back in sajda, for example. If you've gone up too early, let's say the imam, for whatever reason, the sajda becomes very long, too long, maybe, you know. So the person, as a reflex, he's used to a 3-second sajda, maybe, let's say. So he lifts up, then he realizes, then he just waits there, waiting for the imam. Eventually the imam's got to come up. So it's not correct that a person should wait there for the imam. Instead, he should go where the imam is. And Imam Malik said this is a mistake. And this is in against the teachings of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that the imam is someone to be followed. Then you should not be different. You should be you should be in accordance with the imam, not that you should be preceding the imam. Abu Hurairah radiyallahu anhu said that whoever lifts his head up and lowers his head before the imam, it is as though his forelock is in the hands of shaitan. What's the condition of a person? The shaitan is controlling him. This is also that he's led by that, right? That he's doing as he wishes, right? Or he's following the whims of shaitan. This is according, Shah Waliullah says in the commentary of this, that according to the general body of the scholars, the general scholarship of Islam, that this act is prohibited, but the salat is valid. And majority of the scholars, they say that the person should return back to the sajda. In Fatawa al-Amgiriya, it's a Hanafi Fatawa collection, it mentions that if the follower goes up, lifts his head up from ruku or sujood before the imam, then he should return, and this will not become 2 rukus and 2 sajdas. If you imagine that the imam has done this in the second sajda, you lift your head up, someone lifts up their head, then what's happening? What does this look like? You're doing a 3rd sajda, isn't it? But it's not a 3rd sajda, right? You're just completing the sajda with the imam that you're supposed to complete in the first place. It's not now 3 sajdas. There was an incident that happened where one of the imam, in Melbourne, one of the mosque, our teacher was there. It's very quick to answer the question, very smart. He said the imam broke his wudu. He pulled somebody from the back, right, to take his place. The imam went, so the imam was in sajda. He did the first sajda. He got the brother from the back. The brother came in, he continued the salat. He knew the masail of salat. It means in the front row behind the imam, we should know the basics. If imam gets in trouble, he has to leave or whatever, or he's got a blood nose or whatever it is, that it's an emergency or gets sick or his voice goes and somebody else to recite, then the people behind, they should pray, they be ready to take over. All right? And if you're not ready to go, you can't go like, you can't do this business. And for the Imam, you got to know some of the rulings. Rasulullah, some of the people should pray behind me, ulul nuha. People that are, they know, they're aware, they have the knowledge of these. Jazakallah khair. Heading off, inshallah. Where's the brother? You need you need the. Yeah, Jazakallah khair. Just bringing it for you, inshallah. So the people behind should know the masail, the rules, right? So anyway, the got it? Then the next. So the person, the Imam did the first sajda, got up. The guy was doing his first sajda. He went back. Everybody, he only picked out one person. He got up, then went and did a sajda. So how many sajdas he's done? 2. But he got up, so he's done 2, but the whole mosque hasn't done. So my teacher was there, and he asked the question. They checked after, is the salat valid? And he said the Imam's salat is valid. Everybody has to repeat the salat, because you can't just miss one sajda. There's no sajda, so nothing is done. Even sajda so is not, and the sajda is not complete. Sajda is made up of 2 parts, so the sajda is not done. Understand? Look, sometimes these masail can become delicate because affect your salat acceptance of your salat or not. I hope you understood that case. But anyway, that it mentions here that the person who does that, the person who goes back to Imam, he's not doing a third. He's still 2 sajdas and it's still a ruku that he's doing. If he gets up early, then he goes back to meet the Imam. By mistake, he got up, he goes back. Now he's not doing 2 rukus. It's still a single act. The next section is about the Imam, that he should lighten. Ala al-imami an yukhaffifa fi salah. That the Imam should make the salat light. Imam Malik has narrated from Zinad, who narrated from A'raj, who narrated from Abu Hurairah, that Rasulullah ﷺ said, if any of you lead the people, then you should make the salat light. Because among you there are weak, there are sick, and there are the elderly. And if any of you want to pray for himself, then he can make the salat as long as he wants. And then we see that in Rasulullah ﷺ practically in Aisha, in some narration mentioned with type of surahs that he read. Sometimes he read Wattini was Zaytun. One of the Sahabi said that I heard Rasulullah ﷺ reading Aisha, Wattini was Zaytun. I prayed behind him. He was reading Aisha, Wattini was Zaytun. I've never heard a more beautiful voice than that of Rasulullah ﷺ. And so, but himself, Rasulullah ﷺ, we know narrations that he read Surah Baqarah and Surah Al Imran, the longest surahs in Salat Tahajjud, right? So, person should be cognizant of the people praying behind, right? Some of the people, they need to hear this, they're not here. I know, I get complaints coming that some people, they've revised 2 pages of the Quran, now they've got to read it in Salat, and so they make sure everybody suffers with them, or they're enjoying it, but everybody else is coming back from work and they're reading the longest. So it depends, people should time it. Depends on the country, some places, but I think generally the guidance that are given, the Imams have written which surahs should be read based on Hadith and so forth, what Rasulullah said. Rasulullah from this salat, for this salat, like Zuhr, and for Fajr he read this, right? It's known that he read certain surahs. So from that they said generally he read from this area. It's not restricted, only read from there, but it gives you an idea of what type of surahs were read. Like in the Maghrib, very short surahs, the last short surahs were read. And Isha, slightly longer surahs, the ones before it was read. Right? So there's basically the general reciting in the Quran is mentioned. The ulama have listed, there's categories and their names, Tiwal, Mufassal, Awsat, and so forth. You basically read from Surah Hujurat, which is surah number, I think, 49 onwards, which is like in the last 2-3 ajza, you're reading those type of surahs. So the person should be cognizant of the people behind him, and should be mindful of the sick. And sometimes, like someone's coming for salat now, like if you notice, I don't know if you remember, in the first or second rakat, someone is like when you do that, it makes me want to pray quicker. I'm not waiting, like I don't know, I get like nervous and I want to like just quickly get up from ruku. Not because I want you to miss but the problem is, like if you're walking from there and running all the way to that end there, and we got like Hajj and other people that are like we make him stay in the ruku for a long time, because no, you shouldn't run like that in the masjid, especially because our floor's hollow, you can hear it, and like we'll try to make it like reasonably, maybe 1 or 2 extra, but there's people behind us that struggle. A long time ago I used to pray, when I used to lead salat, I used to get the ruku was too long, so I used to get complaint from the older gentlemen. They said the bowing part, the ruku is too long, okay, please, like, have some mercy on us. You know, it's very hard for us to stay for a long time. But like in some countries, you go, like I remember in Egypt, I mentioned this before as well. Our salat is very quick. I don't know if this is it's my experience, but even the guy in the airport, the guy in the overalls who's, you know, the shift and he's doing salat, he's not worried about you missing your salat. You know, like your flight. The sajdas are really long, and the rukus. One of the imams in one of the masjids asked me to lead salat when I was there, and I made sure I prayed a little bit extra. And then the guy came after, he goes, "You're not a local, are you? Because your salat is so quick." You know, so even like they had generally, this is my experience. Generally, I noticed the imams, they compared to Australia, their rukus and sajdas are a little extra. Is that right, or am I saying they're longer, aren't they? They're long over there. They're not in a hurry. You know, they're not in a hurry like we are. We got appointments to go to. We got places to go. Astaghfirullah. But anyway, so the imam should make, as an etiquette, the imam should make. And your job is not to do the tarbiyah of other people and not to train them and discipline them. That's not the place to do it, right? Salat is not today to punish people, right? It's to lead salat in a way that people are happy with. They cheerfully do the salat in a reasonable, like it's done completely, right? So it says here, Imam Mahalli is a great Shafi'i alim. He is quoting him that you should not do more than what is mustahab, what is generally sunnah when it comes to this 5 times salat. That you should not do لا يزيد على القراءة المستحبة. What is recommended, like not what is fard. Right? Fard is 3 short ayat in the Hanafi fiqh. In the other madahib, some of the madahib, surahs are not even, they're not a sunnah. Sorry, they're not a fard of salat. Right? Like if you read 1 line, that's sufficient. Salat is done. Like if you read Fatiha in 1 line, you read Inna Atayna Kal Kawthar, that's it. Like that much. If you read, salat is for each rakat is done. So it says that you should not do more than the mustahab. Like you read like 4 pages of Baqarah in Isha, or in Isha. This is like more than what is the mustahab required based on the surahs that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam read. And you should not make it a burden on the people. لا يثقل على قومي ولكن يخفف. You should not make it a burden upon the people. You should make it light. You should not make it heavy. You should make it light. بعد, and this is very important, بعد يكونوا على التمام والاستحباب. The salat is done in a complete and perfect. All the sunnahs, mustahabbat, everything's done. Right? If you go by the bare minimum salat, Subhana Rabbil A'la once, Subhana Rabbil Azim once. My father told me to read it 5 times because you read too quickly. Rahimahullah. He said you read 5 because your Subhana Rabbil A'la, Subhana Rabbil A'la is very quick. You know, because my 5 is like probably your 3 or something like that. Or like unfortunately I read too quickly. So he told me to read 5, like pace it, so that because you got a habit. Like that to read quickly, so it's but the thing is that salat is done to a perfection. All the sunnahs are done, all the du'as are read, right? Sami Allahu Rabbana wa lakal hamd. As Imam, it's recommended to read the longer version, especially in the Hanbali fiqh. Like it's in the Hanafi fiqh, the Imam doesn't have to read, only the followers read Rabbana wa lakal hamd, right? So if you notice, I read actually with Rabbana wa lakal hamd as-samai wal ardi min lama shi'ta min shay'in ba'd. This is one dua I recommend, the Hanbali fiqh, which I follow. So it's a sunnah dua, and that's I read the longer version. So there's like the salat beginning till end should be done. All the du'as, dua istiftah, subhanakallahumma bihamdika tabarak asmuka. If you skip that, the salat is valid. If you don't do the dua istiftah, the salat is still valid. But read, everything is read. Subhana Rabbil Azim, Subhana Rabbil, everything. There's pauses at every place. Qira'ah is done in a mustahab way. Then that's fine. But in this, doing all of that, you should still make the salat. The qira'ah should be made. The salat should be made light. Right? It should be light so that people don't feel a burden. Light, not in terms of like doing the bare minimum. And this gives you like a principle for life as well. That we're supposed to practice deen, like do the mustahab acts in our life, in everything, in our businesses and everything. There's a bare minimum that we can do to live our life. Like we don't have to do this, you know, that people say, astaghfirullah, this statement, it's only sunnah. It's sunnah, right? It's mustahab, it's mandub, right? These are different words, basically for the same thing. Sunnah is something to be done. Not sunnah is something, it's only sunnah that is to be left out. So when you learn about the sunnah, then we do it, right? The attitude of a mu'min is, oh, my prophet did this, I'm going to do it, right? So we try to do as much as we can. Fard, there's no question asked. It's fard is fard, and we'll be asked about it, and, you know, like compulsory acts. But the extra additional things, we should make an effort to do the mustahab. We should do the sunnah prayers. We should make it a habit. We should not. So even in the salat, it tells you to do things to a completion and perfection, right? To a completion and a perfection. If we do that, then we get rewarded more. We get more. There's one of the ulama in India. Someone came in front of him and said, "It's only that's some matter." He said, "It's only sunnah." He said, "It's sunnah, but your lehja is kufr. The way you talk, and Muslims don't talk like this about the sunnah of Rasul. They don't belittle it and say that's like it's nothing, it's something meaningless. Because that's what if you're saying that it's just sunnah, then we can discard it. And of course, that is not the case. So, and people are very particular about all the sunnahs, all the additional things. Like Shaykh Zakaria Rahimahullah, great Kandalawi, great muhaddith and alim, he passed away in the 80s. So when he was in Mina, in Hajj, he asked for a bowl of milk to be brought. Because we know the hadith of Rasulullah when he was in Hajj, in Hajjatul Wida, in the farewell Hajj, Rasulullah one of the, I think the auntie of Rasulullah, she wanted to know whether Rasulullah was fasting. Because the 9th of Hijra, day of Arafah, so, it's mustahab to fast the day before Eid, right? And there's rewards for that. So but because he's in Hajj, she doesn't know he's fasting or not, right? Because those in Hajj, they don't have to fast. Those outside, they should fast, right? So she went up, so look, the adab they have, the manners they have. Instead of saying, "Oh, are you fast?" You just ask the question. And she's family. She brought a bowl of milk before Rasulullah ﷺ and served it. When he drank, because we knew he wasn't fasting, right? So, but Rasulullah did this. Now, most of us would read this ayah, that incident, and we don't have to fast. That's what we take. Shaykh Zakaria, in imitating Rasulullah ﷺ, he asked for a bowl of milk because on the day of Arafah he drank milk. It's not compulsory, right? It's something Rasulullah ﷺ did on the day. He wanted to act. And who was famous for this? One of the main people that, the narrators that of the chain of narrations of Imam Malik, Abdullah bin Umar radiallahu anhu. He was Abdullah bin Umar Khattab radiallahu anhu, was famous for this. That his extreme imitation of Rasulullah ﷺ in everything, like in little details, he would do what Rasulullah ﷺ did. So anyway, the salat should be done to perfection, but made light at the same time. The follower should stand. يقف المأموم الواحد أو يقف المأموم الواحد على اليمين يمين الإمام والاثنان خلفه. Malik narrated from Ibn Shihab, who narrated from Ubaydullah bin Abdullah bin Utbah ibn Mas'ud, who narrated from his father, that he said that he entered upon Umar ibn Khattab in a certain place, and he saw that he was doing tasbih, and then I stood behind him. I think he might have meant that he's in sajda, or that because I stood behind him, then he made me close to himself until I was in shoulder next to him. So if two people are praying, the Imam is on the left side, the follower is on the right, and they stand next to each other, right? The follower can be a bit behind, but basically they stand next to each other. As long as you don't go in front of the Imam, they stand next to each other, pray. فَلَمَّا جَاءَ يَرْفَى, then when Yarfa came, then he goes, I went back and we made a saf. If two people are there, then they make a separate row behind, right? If there's no room, one can stand on the left and one can stand on the right. But if there's room, then they both should make a separate row behind the Imam. Imam Malik narrated that he narrated from Nafi' that he said Imam Malik narrated from Nafi' that he said, I stood behind Abdullah bin Umar in salat, from one of the salats, and there was no one with him other than me. And he said he took his hand back, and he made me stand next to him. Like he put his hand back and pulled like next to him and made him stand in line with him. The next section is on the emphasis on straightening the rows. Imam Malik narrated from Nafi, narrated from Umar ibn Khattab, that he used to give an order of straightening the safs. If there's somebody used to come and inform him, this is Masjid Nabawi, that the rows were straight. So there was people appointed that they used to inform, right, that the safs are straight, right? Like before the salat started, right, the safs were checked, right? And once they were straight, then he used to make takbir, start the salat. Imam Malik narrated from Abi Nadr, the freed slave of Umar bin Ubaydullah, who narrated from Malik bin Abi Amir, that Usman ibn Affan, he used to say in his khutbah, or he would seldomly miss a minute from his khutbah. He nearly every khutbah he mentioned this, except for a few times that he didn't mention, that when the salat is established, when the iqamah time, the salat is established, people get together to pray the salat, then straighten the safs, right? Make the safs straight, and make the shoulders in line, because the straightening of the safs is from we hear this, the Imams, فَإِنَّ اعْتِدَالُ مِنْ تَمَامِ الصَّلَاةِ. This is the straightening of the safs, the rows, is from the perfection or the completion of salat. Then he used to make takbir. Then they used to make takbir, meaning they used to make the iqama, right? They used to make the iqama. Then there were men that they were appointed, and they used to inform him. Their job was to go along the safs and to check people to make sure the safs was straight. And once it was established, then takbir was made, salat was commenced. Remember, Osman was a Khalifa, but he's also Imam in Masjid Nabawi, right? And it's a large community. Like Masjid Nabawi, it wasn't a small masjid, even at the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It wasn't as big as today. But if you see anybody's been in Masjid Nabawi, you'll see, in the ceiling, the pillars, it's the Osmaniya, the old masjid at the front, you'll see in the green written, Hudud Masjid Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the boundary of the masjid of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So when you go in the masjid, you'll find these in like the pillars marking, so you get an idea. And then Usman radiallahu anh did expansion in his khilafah. So it's quite big. I think we calculated at that time the whole building, everything fitted 10,000 people. So it wasn't a small structure or small space. It was a large, you could say a very large open area, and a lot of people were in there praying, and people coming from everywhere, I guess, in that time. You have many people to check the rows. I have one person here to check on Jummah. Because we use lines in the Kaab, they wouldn't have lines. Like we sort of train, like this is a training that's occurred over a whole life. We've seen lines in the mosque. This is something normal for us. And even then, some people don't know, especially children might not know. In East Masjid, the lines are a little bit different. Like here we stand, because the carpet's joined there, so the blue line became the de facto line. We stand in front of it because people don't want to put their feet on the head part of the next one, and whatever the reason, however do it. Other places have we used to have two, like a double, some masjid like double, like a strip, so you stand anywhere between there. But the shoulders, main thing is that the shoulders line up. And then, the Sahaba radiallahu anhu with a stick, with an arrow, the stuff. Imagine if I got a stick, I get the stick and start checking people's thing. Saf, you probably bring your own stick next time. So it's people. There was one of our teachers, friend and teacher in one of the schools here. So they had Asr Salat. I used to go there. I used to teach in Ilm colleges. I'm talking about 2001, and then I used to stop at Darul at the time. And so I stopped for Asr there and come on the way to Doncaster. And he, mashallah, he was like a general. So he came from a cadet for Pakistan. He's from a cadet college, like a military college, literally. He said that's where he got his confidence from, as some sort of army training, I guess. So, but he used to walk like a general, literally, and you felt like he used to walk. Some schools that you go to, some Islamic Saturday schools and some things you go to, it's like a zoo. I don't know if you've been inside some Islamic schools. It's very sad. It's it's chaos, right? It's like a joke. That's what people wonder. I'm very strict about salat and the maktab kids, and put them in, if you've seen where I've been, like some of the schools, like one of the schools, the teacher comes out of the classroom. I heard him say, he came out, I was passing by me, because when the beasts are gathered, the ayat al-Quran, because when the beasts, sometimes it feels like you're not teaching human beings, but in it, like the ayat al-Quran. So when all the animals, the beasts are gathered, sometimes it feels like you're not teaching human beings. But anyway, there's a discipline to salat. It should not be made. I get it. We have those little posters. If you don't hear the laughing of children in the back, sounds very cute. Whoever wrote that meme, they should be taken to one of these schools, and then you'll cry when you see the condition of salat, which is like the main tarbiyah. That's why people have an objection to if I object, I'm not objecting to people. A masjid, I say, is family friendly, but we have to be also salat and musalli friendly as well. People are not coming to listen to your kids, right? We get it. We know the hadith, but there is also hadith of Ibn Majah where Rasulullah said, don't bring your children to the masjid. Don't bring people that are mentally handicapped to the masjid. It's hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? It's attributed and considered worthy of practice. So it's like you wouldn't take your kids to your office, to a meeting. If you had an important meeting, you wouldn't do that. Somebody could be coming to salat, and he's got the weight of the world on him, family problems, work problems, whatever. He's coming now to pour out his heart to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he's got to listen to your kid running up and down in front of him, like you know what I mean? Like we have to be sensible. Like it's a balance is required. That's why we say when we have big programs, we have a ladies' room there. They can listen to the talk from there. They can take the babies and their kids in there, right? Have an activity upstairs for the kids in a separate room, right? During Taraweeh, we've suggest to parents, but you got to supervise. You can't leave them just throw everything because we use that for classrooms. Like it's got to be like a balance. Like you can't just make it like free for all and salah doesn't mean anything, and like no, we're standing before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's a way and method. But anyway, Shaykh Mufti Najib, he used to walk up and down the saf like a general and give orders to these kids. But it was like from coming from that other school that I was working in, coming to that school, it was like 180 degrees. Like I used to find solace just coming. Oh, okay, you can have 400 kids in a hall, no noise, but it's the person who's there. He's like really in charge. He implemented like a discipline, and he used to say things, and it's not to offend you. He said, "Pull your pants up. Are you a woman?" He was he's really controlled. But that's what it took, And that's the other place. Where's safs? Where else do we make safs? Think about it. There's another place we make safs. Nobody wants to talk about, but there's a discipline in it that's overlaps with that as well. As Abu Suhail, Imam Malik narrated from his uncle, Abu Suhail bin Malik, who narrated from his father, that he said, I was with Osman bin Affan. He goes, I was stood up. So this Imam, who is this? Imam Malik's uncle narrated from his father, Malik. So Imam Malik's grandfather was Malik, right? Bin Malik, who narrated from his father, is Malik. And he was with Osman radiallahu anhu, Imam Malik's grandfather. It tells you, when you read these narrations, you keep hearing the word Mawla, the freed slave of Sahaba. It is amazing. That Sahaba, like the idea of slavery that we have, right? That was the world at the time. But look at the difference. The slaves are the ones that transmitted Islam to us. Those freed slaves, the Sahaba caught and fought against, or they captured, right? They didn't just like free them, right? They became Imams, like Imam Nafi. They became Imams. They taught Islam to the next generation. They transmitted Islam to us. But anyway, and also in this narration, you see that these are the people of Madinah Munawwarra. These are the people living generationally. They've been there 2-3 generations. That's what the fiqh of Imam Malik is. That he said that I was speaking to him until I spoke to him until he, like with his shoe, he leveled out the dirt, dust, the stones in the mosque. He used his shoe to like level it out, right? Either with his hand or his foot, right? Until a man came and told him about the safs are straight. And then he said that straighten the safs. He told me, and he said to me, go into saf, join the straighten the saf, fill the gap. So I kept on talking to him and then he said, all right, someone informed him, and then salat started. Shah Waliullah said, هو قول أهل العلم أن تسوية الصفوف سنة, that it is the view of the people of knowledge that straightening of the saf is sunnah. The virtue of the first saf, Imam Malik narrated from the freed slave Abu Bakr bin Abdul Rahman, who narrated from Abu Salih as-Samman, who narrated Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, if the people لو يعلم الناس ما في النداء والصف الأول ثم لم يجدوا إلا أن يستهموا عليه لاستهموا, that if the people knew what was in the reward for adhan and what was the reward for the first saf, the first row, then you will not find except that people, the only way that you get is like you have to have lottery, you draw lots, pull a short straw, like people will fight over, compete to get a spot in the first saf. And he said, قُلْتُ وَهُوَ قَوْلَ أَهْلِ الْعِلْمِ, this is also the people of knowledge accept this, that this is the value of the first saf. And just two more narrations, inshallah. Al-Junub, someone who has a wet dream, or he needs a fard ghusl, he prays with the people if he's forgetful, if he's prayed with the people. Imam Malik narrated from Yahya bin Sa'id, who narrated from Sulaiman ibn Yasar, that Umar ibn Khattab, he prayed with the people, or he led the people in the morning. Then he went out to his land in a place called Jurf. Then he found some moisture in his clothes, like from before. And he said, Umar radiallahu anhu said, since we've been eating like good meat, right? Like we become more healthier, right? We're eating more nutritious food, then like, our veins have become thing. Now like we get a wet dream, like in the night, like our bodies are very well nourished. Like before we're in a situation of starvation, now we're very well nourished. He made a ghusl, fard ghusl, and he repeated his salat, because most likely that this happened before Fajr, right? When he woke up, he didn't check, and then he realized, because I had a dream or something before in the sleep, ihtilam, wet dream. And so then he washed himself, washed his clothes, washed himself, had a ghusl, and then he repeated his salat. In some of the narrations of this, there's various chains of narration. Shah Waliullah says that he repeated salat, he didn't order anyone to repeat the salat, right? And this is the madhab of Imam Shafi Rahimahullah and other Imams, even Imam Ahmad Muhammad Rahimahullah, that if the Imam doesn't have wudu, he forgot that he had wudu, he thought that he had wudu, he leads the salat, right, without wudu, or even he had ghusl, and he led the salat. The salat of everybody, and he finishes salam, everything is done, and he walks out, he realizes, and the mosque is, his salat is invalid, he has to repeat his salat, because he did it without wudu, or ghusl. But the followers don't have to repeat their salat. As opposed to Imam Hanifa Rahimahullah, he said he has to repeat the salat, and an announcement has to be made in conclusion that everybody has to repeat. And I saw this in a mosque in Pakistan. It's like 10,000 in that mosque. The Imam realized he didn't have wudu for dhuhr. An announcement was made that his dhuhr, I didn't have wudu, and because everybody has to repeat the salat. The whole mosque had to repeat the salat. That's according to Imam Hanifa's madhab, that he has to repeat, the Imam has to repeat, and the followers has to repeat as well. And this is one of the narration support of the other view, which is only the Imam has to repeat. But if the Imam remembers in the middle, he just breaks his salat. He doesn't have salat, right? You cannot just put someone forward at that moment, because the salat was not valid from the start. He didn't have wudu from the start. So he can just break and say, I didn't have wudu, go back wudu, come back, and then he leads the salat, right? The last narration for tonight, that it is makruh. It is disliked for the person who is born out of wedlock to lead the salat. Imam Malik narrated from Yahya bin Sa'id that a man, he led the people in a place called Aqiq. Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, the second Umar radiallahu anhu, he basically sent a message to prevent him from leading salat. And Imam Malik said that the reason was that his father was not known. I said that the Imam, if it's not known who is, like it's not, what he means that he was born out of wedlock, that he was born out of zina, right? That the imamat of the walad zina, the child born out of wedlock, according to the Hanafis, is makruh. That means there's that whole other view, number one. Number two is that if it's not known, it's not known. Like if you don't know anything about it, but it was known in that society. And especially in these places, like if it's known that a person, it's a aib, right? And that's a position of leadership, and there's a question mark on, people don't feel comfortable with following. Right? It's possible somebody's a very good qari and so forth, and he's personally capable. But then once something like that comes attached, people don't feel, those sort of traditional societies, they can't bring themselves to follow a person. And we see that today, maybe to understand, if we see a politician, as an example, imama in another sense, a leadership position, as soon as you know something in his character is flawed, a certain segment of society will not be able to follow him, will not be able to listen to him. An imam is leading the most important thing, the daily 5 times salat. So a certain segment, that brings it causes a disruption in that community. And therefore, according to the Hanafi scholars, that this is a person that he should not, it's makruh, the salat will be valid, prayed behind him. But it's better that he doesn't lead. And if you see in the categories of the people who lead salat, there's people, like it mentions people that are senior, it mentions people that are noble in the society, right? That like if you don't have an imam that's qualified or trained or whatnot, or appointed imam, which is first, just to make sure you guys don't get any ideas, the appointed imam is first, and then there's a categorization of like levels of who should lead the salat, and in the case where there's no one, like the one who knows the Quran more, or is the one who knows fiqh more. Right? There's that debate as well between the Shafis and Hanafis. One said afqah bi masail salat, the other one said aqra, right? Based on the Hadith. So there's a difference. Like the one who's most well versed in the jurisprudence, the laws of salat, he knows the beginning, all the details of salat, or the one who knows the most Quran by heart, or he can read the best. His tilawat and makhar, especially Fatiha, is the best. So there's all these other categories and subcategories. But this is in the case where there's no appointed imam. So here, this person was, the Khalifa sent, maybe the fact that he reached him, maybe when he was a governor of Medina, Umar al-Aziz was governor of Medina before, maybe he reached him, it disturbed maybe that community, right? And like, I mean, one of the Imams of the Haram, Kalbani, was it, that he appeared in the video game, right? He appeared in a video game. Now, you know, like he appeared in a video, like a video of a video game, right? I mean, this was heavily criticized. Like I was reading the comments in Twitter. Twitter's not a good place to take a thing, but it was like heavily criticized. Like, know your place, know that where he previously lived, like in the Haram, he was Imam in the Haram. You know, he said my appointment of being Imam in the Haram because he was black is bigger than bigger than Obama becoming the president of the United States. You know, because a black man is Imam of the Haram, right? Of course it is. But then he appeared that even afterwards, you can see like those certain Imam positions or certain places, Haram obviously the top, Makkah and Medina, then of course the people will find it objectionable, right? They'll pick fault with that person. It's probably not even good for that person to be, and it's public, right? Because the fact that Umar ibn Aziz knew about it, people are talking about it. So it's probably bad, and the controversy around and so forth, so he just removed him from that position. It created unnecessary, we can read more into probably about this, but it probably created unnecessary backlash or news and gossip in the community like that, and people could not, and sometimes other things, people dig up other things about people. There's a alim in West Africa, I think he was left, he was like one of these people, like born out of wedlock, and then he was like left at an orphanage or something. But he became the most senior alim of that country. One of my teachers from that country was telling me, because he was the most senior mufti alim of that country. So they tried to make him imam of a big masjid and to lead salat. Thousands of his students are ulama, right? And he said, I don't know who my father is. I can't lead you in salat. Now this can be looked at negatively and positively, right? But he refused to be imam because I don't know who because I was left at an orphanage or something like that, right? Like he didn't expose his mother or anything like that, but he just said that I don't know who my father, I was just like an abandoned child. I don't know my lineage or anything like that. Therefore, like he applied this masala on himself. Despite his respected position and so forth, he applied it on himself. Because people avoided, they were scared of big. One of the ulama, he wrote a book, they wanted to make him a qadi, I think in Tunis or somewhere. He tried to write they wanted to make him a qadi, a judge. And this is something people ran away from. Imam Hanifa ended up in jail. Imam Muhammad ran away. They were trying to give him state-appointed position, very well-paid jobs, right? But among the ulama class, he was seen as, in the past, the righteous ulama, the ulama Rabbani, they saw this as like, you're working for the government now. You know, as rightly, they were criticized that you're a puppet. Ulama balat, Arabs have very beautiful words for the palace, the darbari, you know. They are at the doorstep of the rulers. They're very like harsh words that are used in the Muslim. This is in our tradition. It comes. So off the topic, but so ulama, they try to discredit themselves. So he wrote a book about the etiquettes of intimacy, like sexual etiquette. They didn't make him a qadi after that. He wrote a book, a very creative, colorful book, a lot of stories in there, a lot of everything in there. It's quite actually entertaining, but I think some of you might know what I'm talking about. But that was to discredit himself. Now some ulama say, like Shaykh Shaflitani Rahimahullah said, that is it permissible to do something that will make you people think that you are like you do something that discredits you in public, like you haven't done anything haram right? You haven't done anything haram, but people look at you in a lower thing. Some say as long as it is not a sin, you can do that, right? As long as it's not a sin, a person can make himself look like to make himself aloof from, like to make himself look lower in the eyes of the people, right? There's some say, you can do anything. Like you're not smoking, we get a cigarette. Imagine if I walk out of the mosque with a cigarette in my mouth. None of you are coming to us next week. You're probably not going to be in the dars next week. Man, this guy smokes, like, what kind of imam is this? But I don't smoke. I just put a cigarette in my mouth. As an example, this fatwas are for, and it's makruh, haram, whatever. That's a different story. But as an example, I walk out, I must put a cigarette in my mouth, I walk out, and then like you're going to have like second, you're going to question, like, is this guy's, is my salat going to be, he's here every Thursday, I'm not going to come for salat for Aisha next week. So what I'm saying, like, they do things to make themselves look, is it permissible to do something where people question? So then there's a whole discussion among the ulama about this. So for example, one of the, and that's what that sheikh did from West Africa, that's what he was doing. So there's some, he might have viewed that that's perfectly fine. Others of you know, the hadith of Rasulullah was walking with his wife, I think Salama radiallahu anha, at night time. Two Sahabi walking past, Rasulullah stopped them, he said, this is my wife Salama. And so, Ya Rasulullah, you don't have to explain to, you know, I'm putting my own words, you don't have to explain to us if you're walking with a woman, you know, at night time. And he said, no, shaitan moves through people's veins, like blood moves. Meaning it makes you think things and question other people and their motives and, you know, what they're doing, who they're with and so forth. So it puts a shak in the heart. So for people that are in a religiously prominent positions, they should not engage in things, because now they're sort of like, especially big, very senior ulama, muftis, the countries, imams of big, you know, Masjid al-Aqsa and all these places. They are in a very, in a position, they're no longer an individual, they're an institution. And they're an institution of Islam. Therefore, they have to act according to that, not according to their personal preference. Anyway, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us understanding and tawfiq to practice what we're saying here. Subhanallah bihamdi, subhanakallah bihamdi, nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun, wa salamun ala al-mursalin, walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.